We're going to convene this meeting. Thank you for coming. This is kind of the first organizational meeting where you'll actually be voting on things. The process is to elect officers, then to and I was just informed by Mark that Pam can't serve as secretary, and she would be willing to be secretary and custodian of the record. So we've already kind of taken care of that, assuming you'll vote for her for those positions.
Or you can take minutes yourself. It's your choice.
Then I have revised this sheet and provided it in more legible format. Somebody sent me, Leslie, I guess, or no, you did. Mark did.
No, Leslie sent it.
Okay. Leslie and Mark arranged that. So Leslie Seabaugh is sitting there. She's with SEMO RPC, and they provide record keeping and organizational services to us relative to many things, but tax increment financing districts in particular. So I sent out letters and I got responses from individual property owners. Now I didn't send it to individual residences because it's confusing enough for business people to figure it out. But any property that was marked as commercial or had potential for sales tax generation got a letter, and I tried to explain what we're doing here. In response to that, I have received, and you get copies of, requests to be sequestered, as was discussed at the last meeting. And for those that you who weren't here, I'm going to recap a little bit of that. As you may recall, the Tax Increment Financing District was set up in 2013 to provide an incentive for people to invest in improving their property. And the way it works is somebody comes to the city and says, I want to do a project and I want to use the TIF financing. And the city says, okay, and they present an application that shows what they're planning, their projections of the revenues that will be generated, both property tax and sales tax, and how it will be, the note that they're asking the city to give them will be paid back over some period of years. If the city thinks that plan is reasonable, then the city agrees to enter into a note that entitles the person to get paid back in the following manner. The TIF base was set at the 2012, the year before we established the TIF. If somebody invests in the real estate tax known as pallets, or the sales tax known as EATs, economic opportunity taxes, increase over that base, that increment, that's the increment of tax increment, is available to reimburse them for some of their expenses, the expenses that the city approved, and it's limited somewhat by the statute. But the TIF that we set up required both the overall TIF base be met and the individual projects base, sales tax and property tax, be met before a distribution could be made. In that interim period, a number of major properties went off the tax rolls, and at least one significant property was reduced by a lot of money. So what happened was the real estate base shrank. And despite the fact that real estate values might have gone up, some properties were taken out and one was reduced significantly, and we weren't making the real estate base. I did discover that if the sales tax base was being made, we could make distributions to people from the sales tax increment, which we have done, but the system wasn't working. And so the idea was proposed that we amend the TIF boundaries by removing the properties that have been taken off the tax rolls and the properties that the major piece of property that had reduced assessed valuation. That's the Lucent building. In the process of doing that, there was a lot of conversation, and the idea came up, and it was actually proposed by a potential applicant, that they'd be interested in doing a project, but they really didn't want to have to worry about what was happening in the overall TIF. They would like to be able to do their project, and based on its merits, receive compensation should the increment be created to pay back the note. So we talked about that, and Mark Spikerman from Gilmore Bell, the attorney, said, yeah, you can do that. And you could do all 300 properties as individual ones if you wanted to. It'd be unwieldy, because now you have to keep a separate record for each building, and that's not practical. But we did think for a handful it would be worth considering, so we sent out letters and folks responded. You received some of that information. Lewis Rice is on behalf of the Beckermans. You received a Bloomsdale Bank request for the Lucent building. You received an email that was sent to me by Micah on the brewery building, asking to be set aside so that whatever's done there the investment can be recaptured from their increment, regardless of what happens with the overall TIF. By removing these properties, we reduce the threshold for the payments in lieu of taxes, or the real estate tax threshold for the overall TIF. So it accomplishes two goals. One, it gives the property owner the opportunity to sink or swim on the merits of their project without regard to the overall TIF, and it readjusts the overall TIF property base so that existing projects that were funded before the change was made have a better opportunity to get their note paid off. So we really had a little trouble. I've thought of a couple of possible downsides to that, but they're minor considerations and remote possibilities, so I don't even want to discuss them. So I took this sheet and I marked it up, and I put an S by sequester. Those are the ones that will be set off by their own. And I put an R in the left-hand column by those that should be removed because they are not-for-profit organizations and will never go back on the tax rolls, at least not for the purposes of the TIF. Your agenda for tonight is to elect officers, to review and discuss this information, and decide in what form or format you would like it presented at a public hearing that we will schedule tonight. We'll hold tonight. Then we'll advertise the public hearing. There's a period of time, 2 weeks.
We have to give 45 days.
45-day notice for a public hearing. We'll hold the public hearing. We'll receive input from whatever citizens want to provide input. I can't imagine it's going to be a great large turnout for that, but then based on the public hearing, you will vote to revise the boundaries or vote not to revise the boundaries.
You will vote to recommend.
Recommend revising the boundaries, yes. And that goes to the Board of Aldermen.
The Board of Aldermen has the final say.
Is that 45 days cast in stone, or can that be lessened?
It cannot be lessened. By statute, we have to give 45 days notice. So I realize that puts us into the holidays, and time's tight then. So I don't know, January.
It can be longer than 45 days. I mean, at least one applicant wants to get going, so I think we should do it as quickly as we can.
How does it work as far as if it happens, if it hits after the first of the year, what happens? Does it have to, do you lose that whole year as far as?
So the TIF is in place now, but yeah, I guess if you did not do it before January 1, if you look here on the sheet, you can see that the base year assessed value for 2012 was 5.8 million, and current assessed value is 5.5. So there's a $300,000 deficit. There would not be any pilots generated for this year. If you got it done before the end of the year, there would be pilots.
Oh, you could count 18?
You could count 18. Well, I mean, it may not even be possible to get it done by the end of the year. I gotta check the calendar here just to count days.
30 days has September.
Yeah. When are your December meetings?
The board meets on the 2nd and 4th, but
Regardless, Martin, anybody that comes in now, though, has got less time to recuperate that money.
yeah, you can't extend it's
You can't
20
extend it, right?
2023 is the end regardless.
Right, this does not extend
Right.
the life of the TIF.
Which it ends in
2023.
2020.
Yeah.
No.
20.
No.
Yeah. It's
Okay, well,
It's
no,
22 years.
it's a 22, yeah, 2025. It was done in 2013.
Right.
And it's 23 years, so that's...
2026.
26.
2036.
2036, yeah.
36.
What's 2023? I got another something that's 2023. I don't remember.
Your certificates of...
Yeah, that's it.
Participation.
Yeah, actually, like we could maybe get it done by the end of the year, but it's gonna be so late in the year that taxing districts are probably already counting on that money. And it'd be my recommendation that we institute it in 19. So as to not cause any undue pain on the taxing districts.
Okay. That's fine. But does it, if you hit it in the middle of whenever you implement it, how does that affect your sales tax? As far as, does it start from the day you implement it, or does it go, or do you have to start on an annual or a renewal basis when the TIF was passed?
So if the amendment were adopted ultimately by the Board of Aldermen, the city would have to establish separate accounts for each of the sequestered properties, and all the sales tax generated from those sequestered properties that are captured by the TIF would go into those separate accounts starting the next day.
Okay. Okay, so it doesn't, the date really doesn't mean anything?
Not for sales tax.
Okay. What about property tax?
Property tax, like I said, I think it's really advisable to
Sure,
institute
that
it
makes
in
sense.
19. Whether we start it January 2nd or June 2nd, it really
Still
doesn't matter.
capture all the 19?
Right.
Okay.
Did you find the 45th day?
Yeah, so
Want to ask your other question?
that puts us to Monday, November 19th, or Tuesday the 20th. It's the week of Thanksgiving. And then after the public hearing, we have to wait at least 14 days until the Board of Aldermen can adopt.
So it's Christmas Eve.
So we can do a public hearing on November,
Let me just count my days again here. So we sent notices tomorrow. We could have a hearing Tuesday, November 20th, be the earliest day.
And Christmas Eve, right?
And then,
yeah, I won't be here.
And
My
then-
presence least important.
you said 2nd and 4th?
Yeah,
But
we could have a special meeting if necessary.
typically we don't have a second meeting in December.
Yeah,
Right.
so
And that was Mondays?
Thursdays.
Thursdays.
So that'd be the 13th.
Thursday. So you could do it, yeah, if you had the hearing Tuesday the 20th or 26th, 27th, 28th, you could still go to hit your December 13th Board of Aldermen meeting, because that would be more than 14 days from the hearing.
The 20th, we have a board meeting scheduled, so. It's every third Tuesday.
So, but we could do it the Monday, the 19th.
I think it leaves us one day short. 'Cause I can't send notices out until tomorrow.
Okay. Well, let's have it the 21st then, and then ask the board to have a special meeting. Or maybe we'll push back the regular meeting by a day.
I don't think the board needs to have a special meeting if you're meeting December 13th.
Okay, I thought there had to be a certain number of days.
14 days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we could
So
do
we're
it.
still good?
Yeah, we could do it
Okay.
Monday, the 26th, or Tuesday, the 27th, or Wednesday, the 28th, and still. I'm assuming people would probably like that better than the night before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Community television is 26th. Let's do it.
Band.
How about the 26th, November 26th?
Is that also too?
That's
Barbie?
It's a Monday?
Monday, yeah.
6
I only-
p.m.
Pushed it to Monday because there's a community cable television meeting on Tuesday night. Two of the people here are on that committee.
Yeah. Julie, you want that chair?
No. I think you should sit in.
I thought that's where she was going.
Do you want to, before we officially set the time and date for that, do you want to elect officers?
Sure.
Are there any nominations for chair and vice chair? And if Pam wants to be secretary?
I nominate Richard Dick Grimmon for chair.
I'll second.
Eric seconded it.
Oh, okay. I'm the temporary chair, I guess. So, any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. There you go, Mr. Grimmon.
Okay, how about vice chair?
Eric. I nominate Eric Barber.
You may want to move.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other nominations from the floor? Nominations are closed, all in favor?
Aye.
You hear that railroad run?
And would someone like to nominate Pam for secretary and custodian of records?
You want to do that?
Yeah, I'll nominate Pam.
Good choice.
Thank you.
Second.
Julie, you get that?
Any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. All right.
Okay. Now, would anyone like to make a motion to set the public hearing for Monday, November 26th, 6 p.m. here
Are we having it here?
or somewhere else?
And do you think there's a reason to have it? I mean,
I
I
think we don't have any.
think we got plenty of seats for everybody who's
I think we'll be
interested.
all right.
I think so.
I'll make that motion.
God, we might be under renovation by then.
Did someone?
Second it.
Second, okay.
Yeah.
You may have to move it. That's all right. Dick, you're it. You're up. You're now the chair, so you have to.
You gotta move up there in your old seat.
You don't have to.
Oh, no.
We have a motion and a second,
Oh,
though.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You're still good at it. All right, that's good stuff.
Now, the notice I have to give regarding the public hearing has to identify the properties that would be removed or sequestered. So are there any additional properties other
Well-
than what Mr. Thomas marked here?
There are a few property owners here who I didn't hear from before the meeting, and I think we can still consider any requests they might have,
Right.
even though I didn't get it formally. So does either of you want to come up and make a comment? Request consideration?
Bill Holst, Bel Air Rapid.
Going up to the microphone.
Yeah.
They're televising this, so they want to see your face.
Bill Holst, Bel Air Rapid Boutique.
Our request to be sequestered for the TIF. Just make a note, I did not receive a letter.
Oh, really? Sorry
Yes,
about
I
that.
received one yesterday about tonight's meeting. That was the only letter I received.
Yeah, I only sent out one. They all went out the same day. So
Okay.
We did or didn't.
You did
he
not-
got it yesterday.
Yes,
you had the meeting notice.
about the meeting, not about, I don't know, was there another letter?
No, it was just a letter that said we're doing this, explaining what I just explained here.
Okay.
Was that the letter you got? Of course, you and I have had this conversation before, so
Right.
you kind of knew what was going on. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm requesting that the boutique at 1 South Main,
What name is this property?
Bella Ever After Boutique.
Okay.
On this paper?
I got to figure out what number it is. I can look at the map. Figure it out better.
Can anybody, after tonight, can anybody else request or no?
After tonight?
Well, what's the point of having a public hearing?
Right, I mean, we could, it'd be better to not do it, but if changes needed to be made, there's a provision, it could just delay final approval.
It's 148 maybe?
What happens in another 2 years if more people want to be sequestered? Then
146.
We need again to go through this process again.
it's just one person request we have.
Well, one of the questions we're going to find out is there's a cost associated with doing this. So I think we're going to come up with a conclusion as to what the total cost is, and the project would have to warrant the expense.
That was one of the questions I had, Mark, was exactly that. If, if it does come up,
It's 146.
146.
what's it going to cost, and shouldn't that cost probably be borne by the person doing the request? It really shouldn't be the city.
Right. So unfortunately, the TIF Act says anytime you mess with the boundaries of a redevelopment area, we've got to convene the TIF commission, we've got to call a public hearing, we've got to give the 45-day notice. So fortunately, it's a time-consuming, somewhat expensive process. So I think, as Mr. Thomas said, it's got to be worthwhile enough to go undertake that.
Or if they're willing to pay it.
Or if they're willing to pay it, yeah.
Do we ballpark?
Well, regional planning has set a cap of $2,500 for their services, so it's going to be something under that, and then we have legal fees,
Yeah, I mean,
and then we have administrative costs.
right, it'll be a few $1,000s.
You're saying yours wouldn't be to do one property or to change it?
For our services in this amendment, we are attending and helping with the information to provide to Gilmore and Bell, and then also redrawing the boundaries in the GIS program. That's just a very small portion of the amendment, and we're capping those services at $2,500.
But we're being charged hourly,
Right.
$60 an hour.
Yeah, so it's not a contract, it's just a very small segment of the amendment.
Okay.
So we've got that fee, and we'll find out what it is afterwards, but it's not going to be more than $2,500. We've got legal fees, and then we have some administrative costs, not just discounting our time, but mailings and...
So it could, yeah, like, so it could very easily be a couple $1,000.
Right.
Your request is noted. It will be part of what we present at the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
And it's, just to be clear, it's number one, parcel
146.
146.
Tom, you have anything you want to say? You got to come up to the podium.
We received a letter on Tuesday,
Okay.
and so I'm kind of shocked that to me this is quick, means this is, I recall 2 days later, and so to fill us in, we just thought we would attend the meeting, but yeah, I could be a participant, I could remodel mine.
Well, remodeling,
Yeah.
it's got to be
Yeah.
something you do that increases the property tax
Well,
and generates additional sales
yeah.
tax.
Well-
So painting and fixing the roof, and that, none of that's gonna accomplish that.
I mean, obviously, we all can be creative. So, I mean, I've been in this long enough to know that. So, I mean, but I'm shocked that, you know, this gentleman over here said he didn't even hear about it, and we only heard about it on Tuesday. And I know our post office is a good 5 houses away from my store, so I don't know who we're gonna blame it on.
Well, it has to go to St. Louis first, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Take it to the
You know, why don't we, since nobody's got to be in a big hurry, why don't we just, and it's going to be in the you know, now that it'll be in the paper this week, we don't need to be in a hurry, so let's just, why don't we just put the hearing off and add another, well, of course, there are people who want to get started. Forget about that, and they can't start until they get approval, right? Until it gets changed. I was going to say, we just put it off for another 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, I
Can they
guess
start
they
the
can.
application? Can they start the application to the city at this
Yeah,
point in
I mean, they-
anticipation of the TIF?
Right, the tip is there now, they could start, they just have no guarantee that the city will ever complete the amendment process that would allow them to actually get TIF revenues in the future.
Isn't there something in there? Can they actually physically start doing something until they get the approval?
No, the definition of what they do is, what's reimbursable is done through the approval of the application and the note.
So, but that's, the program to approve the application of the note is existing now.
Yes.
I think, so they could apply, the city could approve them. There's just, until we get this straightened out and completed, there probably won't be any revenue to ever pay them, besides maybe some sales tax.
Yeah.
But if they
But-
apply and they're approved, they could get started on their physical construction project.
Good, but if the TIF isn't functioning as it isn't now, then they would be, they would be
Which is nothing.
risking not being able to recapture the eligible expenses from the increment.
Because once they go into the TIF the way it is now, you can't come out and pull that property out if it's under a current TIF contract, like Audubon. They can't sequester themselves now.
No, they're part of the old
Right,
system.
so if you get an approved TIF now, as it stands, you are part of the group.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, why would you want to do that?
And you wouldn't want to do that. So if he wants to start as soon as possible, it makes sense to amend the TIF as soon as possible.
Well, we're not voting to amend it tonight. We're voting on what we're going to present at a public hearing. If in the interim, someone says, you know, I've given this consideration and I would like to be part of that, come to the public hearing and be heard, then you will vote at the subsequent meeting or at the end of the public hearing on how to adjust the boundaries. So I don't think we have disenfranchised anybody by proceeding.
Mark, you say it will delay it though? If you
So
got
if-
somebody after tonight?
If, so after tonight, in addition to giving the notices, with Leslie's help, we'll prepare an actual amendment, you know, in writing. That'll be presented at the public hearing. If at the public hearing, or anytime between now and the public hearing, somebody wants a change, either, you know, removal, sequestration, we may have to continue the public hearing to another day, you know, a week later or so that we could get, because the statute says we have to give additional notice if there's a substantial change. And then-
What's the point of having a hearing if you can't change the document you're having a hearing about?
Well, you can, you just have to give notice to the taxing districts again. And it's not 45 days, it's 7 days, but,
Okay, so the maximum, if somebody came between now and the hearing, the maximum extension that the hearing would end up being would be another 7 days?
right.
Okay.
But then we wouldn't hit the December 13th board of Aldermen
Right.
meeting. So, you know, it's dominoes, right? One delay delays the next step.
We'd have to have a special meeting.
We could have a special Board of Aldermen,
Yeah.
one item
On
agenda.
the 20th or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We go with that? Then that would solve everybody's problem as far as if people have felt like they got enough notice.
Yeah.
Tom, you okay with that?
Okay.
Mark, did you catch all that to put in the paper? How all that will work?
He goes back and watches the television.
All right.
Yeah, he gets that DVD. So we did.
So we'll leave the hearing the way it is, but if we get any extra, we might be put back another week.
Right, we'd have to give 7 days notice and then
What's the date on public hearing?
The 26th.
26th.
26.
Can you set the deadline to adding a property 7 days before the scheduled meeting? And then you wouldn't have to worry about extending it?
Well, he has to,
I think it might be, even if it would be, if the notice goes out tomorrow and you get somebody to come in the next day, then you'd still have to extend it 7 days.
So I can give the 7-day notice 7 days before the public hearing. My thought is there's always a risk somebody's just going to show up in the public hearing and want to change. And it'd be up to you guys to tell them no, but if you wanted to say yes, we still have to do 7 days from that point.
Well, then
If you want a hard deadline,
make it 7 days before the public hearing.
yeah.
That's reasonable.
Should be plenty of
That
notice.
should be fine.
Yeah.
Okay with that? That is, gee, that's,
And you can, between now and November 26th, you're welcome to schedule an interim meeting and entertain additional requests if they come in.
Yeah.
okay.
But if we set the deadline, someone could still come to the public hearing and request, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, we can, just thinking out loud of how this might work, since we have to send notices to all the property owners anyway regarding the public hearing, we could include in that notice
The deadline.
the deadline.
Good.
If you want any changes.
That's a good idea.
How far in advance are we gonna send those out?
The deadline's the 19th, right?
He's sending that one out. Or he's not, he's drafting that one. We'll send it out.
So we got the 26th.
Right away? or-
Right away. yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that would be
Yeah.
good.
So we can
So
have a
then about
deadline.
day at a
Yeah,
time,
we need
yeah.
plenty of time.
Still,
Mhm.
it still needs what they have.
Yeah. If we could have a deadline of, I don't know, Thursday the 15th or Friday the 16th of November, then we'd be able to send the notices out November 19th if there were any changes and be on track for our November 26th hearing.
That'll work.
Yeah.
Got that?
So,
You're gonna decide on maybe the 15th or 16th, then send out the letter, right? It's the last day. of
That'd be the
request.
last day for request.
Unless, and then if you wanted to have an interim meeting, which I don't know that you do, but if you did, you could have it sometime that week of November 12th, and we could even have the deadline before whenever your meeting is. If you wanted to review them.
Why don't we, if we get any, why don't we could always schedule it, right? I mean, 12th, now, even if you put it down there, put the deadline back to like the 12th or something, that's still over a month for people to make the request, which should be plenty. And then you give you time to have a meeting in between that and the 7 days on the 19th, right?
Yeah.
So why don't we put it back to 12th or so?
What's on the 12th?
What day is it?
That'd be the deadline
Yeah.
to request a change.
That's Monday the 12th.
That don't matter. You're off that day, that's all.
Yeah, they are.
Well, what day?
12.
Over 12.
Well, the 12th is a deadline, it's not a meeting date.
Right.
Right.
So they can't come in on the 12th.
So,
Okay.
shall we make it the 13th?
Make it the 13th.
13.
Yeah.
13th. All right. We'll come up with a date or sometime. 13th. Monday's a holiday.
Was that election or anything?
Veterans Day. Veterans Day. You not a veteran?
I am, but it's not,
You don't
I don't
care.
care about that. I'm not good at these things.
Wow.
I often show up for work and wonder where everybody is.
Do you really?
Yeah, I've
I
done
like to
that
know that.
4 or 5
That's
times.
Mark, one thing I think it's important, and we talked a little bit about it the last meeting, but I think your opinion somewhere in writing needs to be there, that just to save any aggravation or miscommunications later on, is that when the sequestered properties notes are paid off, that increment goes back into the general TIF fund.
Yep.
That needs to be put somewhere, because I could see somebody coming up and saying that, well, that was out of the TIF, and that
Right.
money doesn't go back into the TIF. That needs to be written down
Right.
somewhere.
Now, for those of you who weren't here last time, we discussed that if an area, a sequestered area paid off, the TIF revenues from that could still be used for the greater benefit of the entire TIF area.
Right.
Do they undergo another project and still stay sequestered?
Like another improvement to the,
Or would they have to request again?
yeah,
I don't know, man.
If it's within the timeline.
When you do a project, the specifics of your project are approved. So the items that you're going to spend money on are determined eligible and approved by the Board of Aldermen to be recaptured. So yes, you'd have to have another application.
Right.
Whether you're entitled to remain sequestered is the issue that I don't think
Yeah, that's the
I'm clear
question.
on.
right.
I'm asking because that could come up.
Yeah, I
Don't
think
plan on it, but it could.
the city may have some discretion, but we'd have to look at the specific project and the specific property.
I mean, I don't know the legality of it, but, you know, if a person anticipates a project before the note is paid off, it'd be kind of an extension of the sequestration. If you
Right.
wait after, then I think it gets cloudier.
I agree.
Adjustments have already been made.
But we can speak clearly to that at the public hearing.
Anything else?
I think it's
We down here?
does the group accept the inclusions and exclusions with the amendment of Bell ever after for proposal at the public hearing, I guess is the question.
What about Tom?
Well, Tom hasn't requested it yet, but he
Oh.
will before November the thing. If he wants it, November the 12th, he's going to consider it,
Oh,
and then he'll let me know, and we'll
I
add
see.
him if he wants to.
all right.
Is everybody okay with the list that we got, with the addition?
Yeah.
What's the
Yeah,
deadline
vote on-
again?
We need to vote on that?
November 13th.
November 13th. We need to
That's
vote
under
on that.
discuss potential amendments to the redevelopment area boundaries. Yeah, I'd say a vote would be appropriate.
Somebody make a motion to accept those?
Move approval.
Second?
I'll say.
All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay.
And then the next meeting would be that 26th unless we end up getting some more. We may have one before that.
Do you want to tentatively schedule something for the 13th, 14th?
Yeah, probably not a bad idea. 14th? Is that it?
What's that?
Wednesday.
Wednesday night.
Yeah, Tuesday or Wednesday should work on it.
I prefer the 13th, that we can do the
13th?
14th. Yeah.
Yeah.
13th.
I'm getting medication
Well,
on the 14th that I really need to like
13th.
not go anywhere after I take it.
I can't make the 13th, but I can see if Shannon can cover.
Okay. I can do the 14th. I can delay my deal.
14th?
14th or 13th?
It's this shit deal.
You know about that?
No, I'm just trying to keep track of my
Okay.
date.
What are we doing?
Doing the 14th.
14th, all right.
At 6?
14th at 6.
And then again on the 26th.
Yes.
Yes.
Public hearing.
Definite, the 3rd and the 14th is maybe, yeah. Between these 2 dates.
Well, this is tentative.
Yeah, tentative.
That's only somebody requesting.
Yeah, we get some more requests. Okay. Anything else, Martin?
Mark?
For me.
Anybody? Anybody?
On other business? Are we on other business?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I have a question, unless I missed something. You're taking some properties out in the sequester. What about properties that were missed the first time around that are historic properties that should be in this TIF?
This adjustment could,
Right.
I mean, would this be the proper time to talk about that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you go out Market Street, you go to 8th and Market, there's a historic property. Right behind there, there's an historic property. You go out a little bit more on Market Street, there's another historic property. And for some reason, I don't know why they were missed, but some of these properties go back in the 1700s. The one on the corner of 8th and Market, and the property 2 doors behind that one is horizontal log homes. And I don't know if they have any interest, but I think it's worth viewing. And the property I renovated, 1021 Market, goes back to 1890, and I don't know if they have any interest. But you also can go out 3rd Street where you extend it out, and there are historic properties. But I don't know who did that review.
No, it's a committee just like this.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking maybe that ought to be looked at.
Their thought process, as I recall, and some of you were there at the table, was kind of whether there was a potential for converting them to commercial use, because absent the generation of
Sure.
sales tax, the numbers don't work.
Right.
So, you know, if you're going to renovate a structure, unless you're doing a renovation that's going to significantly add to its assessed valuation, as was the case with the brewery, you don't generate a sufficient increment. So I guess there are historic properties all over town that.
No, I understand they need to be commercial, but just wondered about it. Okay.
Could between now and the 13th, anybody that would, I mean, that, we're just not talking about sequestered properties. Can we also talk about if anybody wants to be included in the TIF? Can all of that be addressed at the same time?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. So if anybody wants to be added to the TIF, to the boundary, they got till the 13th to let us know that.
Thank you.
How's that?
On the corner. Yeah, it's already on. One behind it isn't.
Anything else? Anybody? Make a motion to adjourn then?
Move adjourned. Oh, did you get that?
I'll get the second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?